The drive up the mountain had always been my favorite ritual after a long trip. There was something sacred about it, something that reminded me why I built my life here in the first place. That morning, Colorado looked like a painting. The sky stretched wide and blue, the kind of blue you only get in early October, crisp and sharp, with not a trace of haze. The golden aspens shimmered in the breeze, their leaves flashing like coins as I turned onto the gravel driveway I had designed and built with my own hands. 12 years ago, I spent weeks shaping this path with a rented bobcat, grading it perfectly so the runoff wouldn't wash it out in spring. Every rock, every bend, every culvert had been placed with care. To most, it was just a road. To me, it was proof. Proof that I could build something lasting, something mine. And at the top of that road was supposed to be my home. My sanctuary. The mansion Sarah and I designed together before cancer took her from me. A house made of Douglas fir logs and riverstone, perched with a sweeping view of the valley. She used to sit on the wide deck with a book in her hands, the sunlight spilling across her hair. That deck wasn't just wood and nails, it was memory, love, and everything we built together. But as I rounded the final curve, where the trees normally parted like curtains to reveal my home in all its glory, I froze. There was nothing. Not a roofline. Not a chimney. Not even the shadow of the house I had left behind 2 weeks earlier. Just a scar. A brown, raw wound carved into the earth, littered with twisted beams, shattered stone, and smoking rubble. My truck idled in the silence. My brain refused to process what my eyes saw. This couldn't be real. A fire? No, fires leave frames, charred remains, black skeletons standing stubborn against the sky. This wasn't fire. This was annihilation. This was demolition. I killed the engine and stepped out. Gravel crunched under my boots as the stench of diesel, ash, and freshly torn earth filled my nose. Tracks, deep, gouging tracks, led across my lawn, straight from the road to the destruction. I followed them with my eyes and there it was, parked just beyond the pines, as if someone had tried half-heartedly to hide it. A rented flatbed truck. A massive excavator. And on the door? A smug little magnetic sign with a cheesy logo, Aspen Creek HOA, Community Compliance Division. For a long moment, I just stood there. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't pound. Instead, I went cold. Ice cold. Because anger without direction is wasted. And I don't waste. I'm an engineer. A soldier. And, though I didn't flaunt it here in the mountains, I also happen to be the sitting governor of this state. And those fools had just declared war on the wrong man. The evidence: I pulled out my phone and opened the private security system app one had built myself. No power from the house was needed, my cameras were solar-powered, motion-triggered, and linked directly to a private encrypted server. The alerts were all there. Every single trespass documented. First clip, 3 days ago. A man in a fluorescent vest walked up to my gate, taped an orange "Notice of Violation" to the post, and left. Fake authority, pretending to be official. Second clip, an hour later. A lowboy trailer hauling a massive excavator groaned up my driveway clearly marked with "private property." No trespassing. Next day, 5 men in hard hats. Laughing. Sipping coffee. Standing before my home like it was just another job. The audio picked up crystal clear. "You sure about this, boss? Place looks solid." "Got the papers right here," their leader said, waving a clipboard. "Emergency compliance order. County signed off. HOA says the guy abandoned it." Lies. Every word of it. I'd built that house stronger than the mountain itself. Sarah and I had overseen every beam, every joint, every stone. It wasn't unstable. It was eternal. Or it was supposed to be. And then I watched, helpless, furious, as the claw of the excavator smashed into the living room window. Sarah's window. The roof collapsed in seconds. The great stone fireplace, the one where I buried her ashes, was torn apart, scattered into dust and debris. My chest tightened like a vice. My wife was gone once before. And now, they had destroyed even the place I kept her memory. The demolition crew? They were just pawns. The real criminal sat behind that clipboard, hiding behind the name, Brenda Winters. President of Aspen Creek HOA. The lie: Brenda had been harassing me for years with her passive-aggressive letters. Complaints about my non-compliant roof color, my unapproved flagpole, even though my land wasn't part of their subdivision. I ignored them because I knew the truth: I was never in their HOA. Not legally. Not technically. Not in any universe that followed the rule of law. And now they had crossed the line from nuisance to criminal destruction. So I made a vow right there, standing in the ashes of my home: I wouldn't just fight them. I would dismantle them. Piece by piece, lie by lie, until Brenda's empire of petty tyranny collapsed like the rubble she left me with. The foundation of justice step 1 was the county deeds office. Ownership, after all, lives and dies on paper. I walked into the Jefferson County Recorder's office, where the air smelled of dust and old paper. Judy, the clerk who knew me from my commissioner days, looked up with a polite smile. Need some records, Judy. Plat maps for Aspen Creek, Section 3. And their articles of incorporation. Minutes later, I spread the crisp printouts across a table. There it was. My parcel, #45B. Recorded in June 2010. A clean, legal 20-acre rectangle. Then the HOA's incorporation date, December 2011. 1.5 years later. Which meant my property existed as an independent legal entity before Aspen Creek HOA even existed. They couldn't retroactively annex me. They had no jurisdiction. No power. Nothing. The lie was right there in black and white. The paper trail on the way back, I stopped at the community mailboxes. Buried in junk mail was a thick envelope stamped, "Final Notice of Intent to Enforce Compliance." I opened it. $2,500 fine for my flagpole. $5,000 fine for my roof. $4,320 in accumulated fees. Total, $11,820. Every single one of those fines was a fraud. The flagpole? County permitted. The roof? Approved by the fire marshal himself. This wasn't just harassment. This was a manufactured debt, created out of thin air to justify theft. That night, in my storage unit, I laid every document on the cold floor: my original deed. Building permits. Electrical inspections. Septic approvals. The stamped permit for the flagpole. The fire marshal's approval for the roof. Each one was a nail in the coffin of Brenda Winter's fraud. The reckoning begins. I could see her plan now. She had seen my mansion just outside her subdivision and decided she wanted control. She filed fake annexation paperwork that she never bothered to register with the county. She sent letters, issued bogus fines, and finally, drunk on her own false authority, she ordered the destruction of my home. What she didn't realize was simple: she hadn't picked on some retiree with no fight left in him. She had bulldozed the home of a man who not only knew how to build, but how to destroy. And this time, I wasn't building a house. I was building a case. One so ironclad, so devastating, that it wouldn't just strip her of power, it would bury her HOA forever. When you've lost everything, you have two choices: you can crumble, or you can sharpen yourself into a weapon. I chose the latter. I spread those documents on the concrete floor of my storage unit like a general laying out a battle plan. Every permit, every inspection, every signed approval was a bullet in my magazine. Brenda Winters thought she had bulldozed me into submission, but all she'd really done was awaken the wrong enemy. And here's the thing most HOAs don't want you to know: their power exists only as long as people believe in it. On paper, their authority collapses under the weight of actual law. That was going to be my strategy. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to threaten. I was going to dismantle them with cold, irrefutable facts. But I also knew Brenda. Facts wouldn't be enough. She thrived on intimidation, on the illusion of control. To beat her, I'd need more than documents. I'd need exposure. And that's when I made my decision: I wasn't just going to win quietly in court. I was going to drag every rotten secret of Aspen Creek HOA into the light, on my terms. The next morning, I walked into the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office with a flash drive full of security footage. The deputy at the front desk, a young guy named Carter, looked up when I dropped it on the counter. "What's this?" "Evidence," I said flatly. "Of trespassing, fraud, and destruction of private property worth over $3 million. I explained what happened. Step by step. Calm. Precise. No theatrics. The kind of clarity that makes people lean in because they know you're not bluffing. Carter's expression shifted from polite dismissal to wide-eyed shock as he scrolled through the video files. By the time he reached the clip of the excavator smashing through my living room, he looked like he wanted to crawl under his desk. "Governor," he started, his voice catching. "Don't call me that here," I interrupted. "Today I'm just a citizen who had his home destroyed by criminals." That distinction mattered to me. I didn't want to win because of my office. I wanted to win because I was right. Still, word travels fast in small towns. Within an hour, the sheriff himself was in the room, watching the footage, his jaw clenched tighter with every minute. "Good Lord," he muttered. "They forged county paperwork?" "Exactly," I said. "And I have the real county records that prove it." He looked at me, then nodded slowly. "We'll open an investigation immediately. But, you know this is going to get messy, right?" I smiled coldly. "Sheriff, messy is exactly what I want." Brenda thought she could drown me in fake notices and fines. So I fought fire with fire. I filed official complaints with the State Attorney General's office, the Department of Regulatory Agencies, the county clerk, the fire marshal's office. And, just to twist the knife, even the IRS, flagging their nonprofit HOA for potential tax fraud. Every complaint included evidence, neatly organized, cross-referenced, and undeniable. But here's the hook for you watching this: backhand index pointing right. How would you fight back if someone demolished your home? Would you go legal, or would you go personal? Drop your answer in the comments, I want to know. Because me? I wasn't just satisfied with paperwork. No, I wanted Brenda to feel what I felt. The shock. The humiliation. The crushing realization that the world she controlled could collapse in an instant. It didn't take long before word of the investigation leaked. Aspen Creek HOA held an emergency board meeting in their little clubhouse, and I made sure I was there. Not as governor. Not as a politician. Just as the man whose life they tried to erase. The room smelled like stale coffee and too much perfume. Brenda sat at the head of the table, smug as ever, her pearls shining under the fluorescent lights. She opened her mouth, probably to spew some self-righteous nonsense about community standards, but I cut her off. "Brenda," I said, placing a thick folder on the table with a satisfying thud. "Do you know what this is?" She frowned. "Another one of your tantrums?" I leaned forward. "This is the deed to my land. Recorded in 2010. A year and a half before your little HOA was even incorporated. Which means," I flipped open the folder, pulling out copies of county records, inspection approvals, permits. "You had no authority. None. Not then. Not now. Not ever." Her face tightened, but I wasn't done. "This," I said, sliding another page across the table, "is the demolition order you forged. The sheriff has a copy. The attorney general has a copy. The press will have a copy by tomorrow morning." The room went dead silent. "You didn't just harass me with fines. You destroyed a multi-million-dollar property. You destroyed the fireplace where I buried my wife's ashes. And now, Brenda, you've destroyed yourself." The weeks that followed were a storm. News outlets swarmed the story: HOA demolishes governor's home in shocking abuse of power. Brenda tried to spin it, claiming she was enforcing community standards. But her lies crumbled fast under the weight of evidence. The sheriff's investigation uncovered even more: missing HOA funds, falsified annexation paperwork, even bribes to contractors. What started as a personal vendetta became a full-blown criminal case. And here's where it gets almost poetic: the very members of the HOA who once bowed to Brenda turned on her the moment the heat came. They voted to dissolve the entire association just to distance themselves from her crimes. The empire she built? Gone. Her reputation? Shredded. Her freedom? Well, let's just say prison walls don't care about community standards. Standing on the scar where my mansion once stood, I felt the weight of it all. The silence. The emptiness. The ghost of Sarah's laughter carried in the wind. I won. Yes. Justice was mine. But justice doesn't rebuild walls. It doesn't replace memories turned to dust. So I made a new vow. I would rebuild, not the same house, not the same fireplace. But something new. Something stronger. A home that honored Sarah, honored resilience, and stood as proof that no petty tyrant could erase what truly matters. And when the first log was set in place for the new foundation, I smiled. Because Brenda had taught me a lesson she never intended: power built on lies collapses. But power built on truth? That endures. So let me ask you, viewers, if your HOA demolished your home, what would you do first? Call a lawyer? Go to the press? Or something else entirely? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you think HOAs have way too much power, hit that like button so more people hear stories like this. Because trust me, this isn't the end. It's just the beginning.